your body still thinks it's living in a cave. Tonight, when you finally fall asleep, you'll do it using a survival system built 200,000 years ago for one of the hottest, most dangerous nights a human being ever had to get through. You think air conditioning solved that problem. It didn't. It just hid it so well you forgot it was ever a problem at all. One more thing before we start. By the end of this video, your own hands are going to feel warmer. That's not a coincidence, and it's not this video playing tricks on you. We'll tell you exactly why, right at the ENN. 200,000 years ago, inside a rock shelter in southern Africa, someone is lying on a mat of dry grass, and they cannot sleep. The stone around them has been soaking up heat since noon. Insects are landing on every inch of exposed skin, and somewhere in the dark, their body is trying to do the one thing it needs to do to survive the night, cool down with nothing in the environment helping it. Sound familiar? It should. That's the same system running in you right now tonight. Whether it's 90 degrees outside or your thermostat says 68. Where they slept. Your ancestors didn't spread evenly across hot landscapes. They clustered disproportionately near caves, overhangs, and north-facing rock faces, not because those spots look nicer, but because rock that never touches direct sun behaves completely differently after dark than rock that does. A 2019 study out of the University of Tübingen, examining Middle Stone Age shelters in South Africa's Western Cape, found the most heavily used sites shared one measurable trait: minimal direct solar exposure during peak daylight hours. The rock stayed cooler, so it released less stored heat at night. Your ancestors weren't choosing a home. They were choosing a battery that discharged less. But shelter alone couldn't finish the job. What they did next is the part almost nobody talks about. The water trick. Long before anyone understood a single word of thermodynamics, people in arid regions were exploiting one of its most basic rules. Evaporating water pulls heat out of its surroundings. In the Indus Valley, sites like Mohenjo-daro, dated to roughly 2500 BCE, show narrow streets deliberately angled to funnel wind across exposed clay water vessels on rooftops. Air moving over wet clay cooled by several degrees before it ever reached a sleeping body, a swamp cooler, 4,000 years before the motor. Australian Aboriginal groups arrived at a version of the same trick independently, soaking the ground near sleeping areas to cool the immediate air pocket around the body. Different continent, different materials, the same physics, the same problem, the same solution. That's not coincidence. That's convergent engineering. And it still wasn't enough on the worst nights. If you're the kind of person who wants the real, researched version of how humans actually survived, not the sanitized textbook version, subscribe. This channel goes looking for the details history class skipped, what they slept in. Here's a piece almost nobody expects, what people chose to lie on and what they refused to wear to bed. In hot climate sites across the Near East, dated from roughly 5000 BCE onward, sleeping mats shift consistently away from tight weaves and toward loose, breathable reed and plant fiber construction material chosen specifically to let air move through instead of trapping it against skin. Tight weave holds heat close, the same way a blanket does in winter. Loose weave does the opposite. It turns the sleeping surface into a mesh, letting body heat escape instead of pooling underneath the sleeper. Bedouin populations in the Arabian Peninsula found a related answer through clothing instead of bedding loose. Layered fabric that traps a thin moving layer of air against the skin. That same air layer insulates against daytime sun, then carries heat away once night falls. Same principle, opposite direction. But even with the right shelter, the right water tricks, and the right fabric some nights, the heat still won. And what happened on those nights is stranger than anything so far. Nights nobody slept through. You've probably assumed a bad night's sleep is a broken night's sleep. Your ancestors would have found that assumption bizarre. Research on populations living in hot, low-resource environments across East Africa has documented something modern sleep science mostly ignores. In high ambient heat, humans don't force one continuous sleep block. They restructure the entire night around the temperature curve, shorter bursts during the hottest hours, deeper rest only once the air finally drops. This isn't insomnia, it's scheduling, and it wasn't happening to one person at a time. If a whole group is sleeping in short, staggered bursts, instead of one synchronized block, the group is almost never fully unconscious at once. There's always someone stirring, someone half awake, someone listening to the dark. In a hot environment, that staggered wakefulness did double-duty cooling relief during the worst hours, and a rolling watch against danger no single sleeper could provide alone. The heat wasn't just a problem to survive, It may have shaped the exact rhythm of how ancient communities kept each other alive through the night, and that rhythm is still running in you. We'll get to how in a minute, the part that was already built in. Because underneath every one of those behaviors, your body had already been quietly re-engineering itself for this exact problem for millions of years. Humans carry an unusually high density of sweat glands compared to almost any other primate, a trait tied to the move onto open, sun-exposed savanna roughly 2 to 3 million years ago. Skin matters too. Stripped of the dense fur that once trapped heat against the body, human skin evolved a structure that maximizes heat radiation from the surface, turning exposed skin into a passive cooling panel that works even while you're unconscious. Remember the promise at the start that your hands would feel warmer by the end of this video? That's the mechanism. Blood rushes to your hands and feet to vent heat, a process researchers have found is the single strongest predictor of how fast a human being falls asleep. It's not this video. It's 2 million years of engineering doing its job right now. Put all 5 pieces next to each other, because none of them worked alone. Shelter placement cut the heat load before dark even arrived. Evaporative tricks pulled extra degrees out of the immediate air. Loose weaves and layered fabric managed how that air moved across skin. Staggered, segmented sleep let the group survive the worst hours without demanding the impossible from any one body. And underneath all of it, biology was already radiating heat through skin built for exactly this. 5 systems, 5 different angles, one problem solved together, not separately. Tonight, you'll do a pale, effortless version of all 5 without ever noticing. You'll pick the cooler room. You'll crack a window or run a fan evaporative cooling 4,000 years late. You'll reach for the lighter sheet without knowing why. You'll wake up at some point for no reason you can name, shift position, fall back asleep. And your hands will warm, quietly, in the dark. You think you solved the heat with a thermostat. You didn't solve anything. You just automated a system your body already knew how to run, built, tested, and perfected long before anyone thought to write it down. If stories like this, the ones history class never got to, are your kind of thing, subscribe. There's a lot more still buried.